Suicide Note, by Mitchell Heisman. This work is a computer-generated reading of Suicide Note, by Mitchell Heisman. This reading was produced using Natural Reader 14, a product of Natural Soft Limited. This work is free and licensed by Mitchell Heisman for copying and distribution under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivative Works 3.0 United States license. Part 1. God is Technology. How the singularity of monotheism transcended biology and primed the technological genesis of God. The genesis of God. Founding the transcendental world city of the mind of God. Creation and destruction. The word gigadeath was coined by brain builder and artificial intelligence researcher Hugo de Garis. Like Kurzweil, he predicts the evolution of artificial intelligence that will likely become trillions of times more intelligent than humans. Unlike Kurzweil, he correctly recognizes the potentiality for a major war with casualties in the billions, gigadeath, this century. According to de Garis, the major antagonists in this war will be between the COSMists, who favor the emergence of godlike artificial intelligence, and Terrans, who oppose the evolution of superhuman ace. The Cosmist, the ultimate cosmopolitan internationalists, take their perspective from vast potentialities of both incomparably superior machines' intelligences, and the entirety of the unexplored cosmos beyond the Earth, which the ace would colonize. The Terrans, who correctly perceive that the emergence of an overwhelming superior form of post-human intelligent life could possibly threaten their existence, would, according to de Garis, wage a preemptive war against AI developers whose goals are not reconcilable with their own. I believe that the 21st century will be dominated by the question as to whether humanity should or should not build RT-Lex, machines of godlike intelligence, trillions of times above the human level. He believes that incompatible answers to this question will result in the worst war in human history. It will be worst war because it will be waged with 21st century technology. De Garis confessed that he was unable to find a way out of this mess. I fear for my grandchildren. They may well see the horror of it and very probably they will be destroyed by it. If I were one of the top cosmist leaders, de Garis wrote, I think my strategy would be to form a secret society. I would create a conspiracy. I would help organize a very secret, extremely powerful and elite group of people with the goal of getting off the face of the Earth, to create a cosmist colony, in space. This is highly unrealistic for a number of reasons. De Garis paints a picture in which COSMists escape to an asteroid in space, build superintelligences, and then announce to the Terrans that they have already developed a powerful weapon that they will use against the Earth, if the Terrans attempt to carry out their threat. De Garis stated that the Cosmist/Terran distinction arose specifically from this space war scenario between the human majority on terrestrial Earth, Terrans, and an elite minority on some cosmic body such as an asteroid, COSMists. The gigadeath war scenario is thus stimulated by a distance that is both ideological and physical. These COSMists, while safe from the fate of Earth in one sense, could not fail to realize that their entire goal amounts to a kind of religious suicide mission. The entire premise of human cosmoism is willingness to risk their own lives as biological beings to create these superbiological beings. Such COSMists would have to be humans of such deep religious faith that they would be willing to both relinquish the ease of life on Earth, and cut off contact with humanity, in an endeavor whose completion would clearly risk their own lives. De Garis believed that the criticism most fatal to his argument concerned timing. If the time between the rise of the first quasi-human level ace and an explosive growth of artificial intelligence is only a few years, rather than decades, then there will not be enough time for the Cosmist/Terran dichotomy to develop socially, and thus no debate, and no great war. His whole argument would be destroyed. Yet a more potent criticism of his argument, regardless of timing, concerns the validity of the Cosmist/Terran distinction itself. De Garis posits a cosmist religious impulse to create the greatest rationality that is so powerful that it defies rational self-preservation. What he is actually proposing is that some of Earth's best minds should leave their home planet so that they can deprive humanity of God and possibilities of post-biological heaven. The cosmist/Terran distinction amounts to the proposition that humanity is inherently good and God is inherently evil. This false dichotomy assumes that there is no other coherent way to perceive the situation. What if an AI demonstrated its character within the model of the goodness of God, while extreme advocates of a biological master race were marginalized as evil? Daguerreo's conceptual framework, dominated by the possibility of a major war, cannot be completely dismissed. But is wiping out humanity the most intelligent conceivable strategy for superhumanly intelligent machines? Is this the single most intelligent response one can expect from the greatest intelligence? The Terran/cosmist bifurcation is one way to perceive the advent of God minds. If events were truly to unfold along these lines, it would represent the failure to grasp that, from a long-term perspective, becoming God may be the most intelligent strategy for both artificial intelligence and the mass of humanity. While a truly superhuman AI would embody certain attributes of God in any case, bringing the mass of unenhanced humans under the protection of God could turn AI from the greatest threat to humanity to humanity's greatest beneficiary. God is most rational possibility for an AI precisely because the possibility that Daguerre recognizes is real. God AI represents the possibility of turning the total extermination of biological humanity into the evolutionary transformation of humanity. Daguerre assumes, not only that people will be split between two primary sides, but also that Terranism and Cosmoism will be the defining bifurcation that dominates all other possibilities. This false dichotomy is based on the belief that the decision whether to build artilects has a binary answer: we can build them or not build them. This binary way of looking the evolution of AI is at the root of Daguerre's misappraisal of the political possibilities. Daguerre uses the atomic bomb paradigm of to build or not to build. This analogy is flawed, partly because it fails to recognize the humanly beneficial uses of nuclear power, but mostly because it fails to understand the evolution of artificial intelligence within a larger evolutionary perspective. By framing the problem as the question, to build or not to build, Daguerre puts the fate of the human race entirely at the hands of dedicated researchers like himself. But perhaps he has only put the fate of the human race in the hands of his Faustian self-image. While I am the last person to deny the possibility that a lone genius could arrive at a singular breakthrough, it is also true AI could not have been developed 1,000 years ago. A larger evolutionary perspective exposes how the prospect of AI emerges out of the law of accelerating returns, and this larger perspective exposes its evolutionary relationship to monotheism in the West and the emergence of capitalism. The scenario of a distinct minority of religious idealist humans going into outer space, even if realistically plausible, misses a larger point. Capitalism will bring about the evolution of non-biological intelligence that exceeds biological intelligence even if no one deliberately sets out to create AI. And this means that non-biological intelligence will eventually put biological humans out of work. To build or not to build? This question, I believe, will divide humanity more bitterly in the 21st century than the question which divided humanity so bitterly in the 20th, namely, who should own capital. 139. While keeping in mind that Karl Marx was wrong in fundamental ways, the question of who owns capital will amount to the question of who owns the machines, who own technology. It is because Daguerre does not see the connection between the question of who own capital and the question of who owns advanced ACE that he remains stuck in the Terran/cosmist dichotomy. Marx was foresightful in recognizing that the relentless accumulation of capital has transformative consequences, but not foresightful enough to identify the transformative consequences of AI. Capitalism will develop machines that displace human labor, and the displacement of human labor by technology will eventually necessitate socialism. The connection between capitalism and superhuman ACE is that capitalism drives technological evolution forward and is, without consciously intending to, driving the evolution of artificial intelligence. There is every reason to think that advanced automation and early AI will displace human labor, create unprecedented unemployment, and necessitate a new socialistic order. Daguerre clearly does recognize that, As he put it, the rise of AI may be inherent in the laws of physics. Such an evolutionary transition, he wrote, may have even happened zillions of times in the universe. Yet the heart of Daguerreo's error is that his genuine contributions to evolutionary engineering led him to believe that such discoveries put evolution itself in the hands of men such as him, while failing to recognize capitalism as the great engine of technological evolution. The great irony is that Daguerreo's very emphasis on evolutionary engineering seems to thwart recognition of the evolutionary role of capitalism, precisely because the centrality of capitalism in technological evolution questions the centrality of his Terran/cosmist distinction. In short, Daguerreo's question of to build or not to build lacks an evolutionary perspective illuminated by the law of accelerating returns. Even if no one consciously attempted to build an AI, capitalism will eventually evolve artificial intelligence out of sheer market competition. Attempts to politically legislate limits on artificial intelligence amounts to the attempt to limit or ban capitalism. If and when such attempts to restrain capitalism are made, human nature will still vindicate the rightness of technologies that improve their lives, and this means AI will continue to penetrate human lives in gradual, ubiquitous, and often imperceptible ways. In order to become better slaves to humans, machines must become more intelligent. The machines must improve their ability to understand human desires and human psychology in order to be better slaves. Human selfishness will gradually drive the evolution of AI in a ways that could make the question of to build or not build obsolete. As the Internet increasingly connects humans and things into an emergent global mind of God, capitalism will evolve machines that make human work obsolete. It is not only that Daguerreos did not account for how these evolutionary developments break down the cosmist/Terran distinction. His political analysis of the prospect of AI demonstrates how flawed the cosmist/Terran distinction is in making sense of the prospect that capitalist development will lead to socialism as biological humans become permanently unemployed. In 20th century terms, the political left represented by Karl Marx is actually the side of economic technological evolution, while the political right, i.e. the Nazis, represents the side of biological evolution. Daguerreos compared the violent abolitionist John Brown, who killed slave owners and helped instigate the U.S. Civil War, to violent neo-Luddite Ted Kaczynski. The problem with this analogy is the problem of clarifying the evolutionary basis of the traditional political distinction between left and right. The Southerners defended principles of a hereditarily based hierarchy, the superiority of biology, the principle of hereditary rank unsubordinated to unrestrained capitalist economic technological evolution. John Brown, whether he knew it or not, was ultimately fighting against the Terran side in the sense that he fought against the aristocracy of biology. The North effectually fought for the subordination of biology to capitalist, economic technological evolution, the beginning of the end of the supremacy of biology over technology. The rise of artificial intelligence marks the end of the aristocracy of biology. In my judgment, the greatest Terran so far, was not Kaczynski, but Martin Heidegger. For Heidegger, the Nazi revolution was an ontological revolution. He believed that the inner truth and greatness of this movement lay in the encounter between global technology and modern man. Heidegger could easily be called a radical Terran. Nazism expressed the German will to fight for their rootedness in their genes against the rootless, cosmist-leaning internationalism of the West. The transformation of man into machine, through mind uploading or otherwise, would represent the most profound uprooting in human history, the uprooting of our biological being. It would be a realization of our most essentially human ability to transcend our limitations, and a farewell to the primordial link that we share our ancestors who were bacteria, fish, and four-legged mammals. This possibility of transferring biological life into post-biological form, anticipated in many ways by the monotheistic tradition, is the heart of my response to Daguerreos. Will biological humans necessarily be eliminated by post-biological machines? I don't know. It is possible that humans could survive indefinitely, but I agree with Daguerreos that as post-biological evolution advances, the chances of human survival in biological form declines. What Daguerreos does not account for, however, is the possibility of survival in post-biological form. Why would ACE preserve humans in post-biological form? There are powerful reasons to think that even independent of human desire for survival, it is in the interest of an intelligently developed AI to preserve humans in post-biological form. At the barest minimum, it is entirely likely that ACE would preserve humans in post-biological form simply out the self-interest of their own self-understanding, just as humans have attempted to understand human evolutionary origins. It would be in their interest to do justice to the realities of human existence, and the example of the evolutionary impact of the Norman conquest illustrates why. While the actual evolutionary influence of the Norman conquest lies hidden in the historical data, the political interests that have obscured its significance could only be understood through a fresh examination of the empirical data. In order for an AI to understand itself in an evolutionary sense, and especially to gauge its evolutionary future, an accurate history of its evolutionary past must be preserved. There is every reason to think that data that does not seem interesting to humans of the present will be of interest to an intelligent AI of the future. If past data is to be uncovered and reanalyzed accurately, justice must be done to the record of human history, and this means preserving humans with maximal accuracy and minimal falsification, i.e. minimal political falsifications. While this is a bare minimum argument, it is extremely powerful when one considers the relationship of accurate science to potent technology. While most people tend to be indifferent to the larger, vaster universe, COSMists emphasize the indifference of the vast universe to the survival of the human species. To the COSMists, building RT-Lex will be like a religion, the destiny of the human species, something truly magnificent and worthy of worship, something to dedicate one's life and energy to achieve. For COSMists, the glory of the prospect of superbeings overwhelms the horror of the death of puny humans, even billions of puny humans. Only humans care about humans. The universe certainly doesn't. For such a glorious goal, the COSMists are willing to risk the extinction of the human race. The difference between cosmist and Terran, then, amounts to a difference in the willingness to risk the survival of humans as a biological species. Since COSMists believe it would be a cosmic tragedy to thwart the existence of post-biological superbeings, they accept the risk that the human species, including themselves, will be exterminated. Terrans, with a more inward-looking, non-cosmic perspective, assert that human survival is the ultimate, non-negotiable priority. Since Terrans refuse to accept the risk that the human species may be annihilated by vastly superior machine intelligences, they are categorically against building them. Since the only way to eliminate that risk is to make sure such vastly superior machines are never built, they are willing to kill the COSMists in self-defense. Daguerreus depicts cosmist beliefs as more abstract and intellectual, and its constituency as both more open-minded and elitist. Cosmoism is almost a religion of elitism. Yet the construction of a truly superior machine would effectually demonstrate a basic biological equality in that all biological humans would be roughly equal relative to such inordinate machine intelligence. Herein lays the basis for combining supreme elitism with supreme egalitarianism. The very superiority of the God AI will produce a basis for radical egalitarianism among biological humans. Human COSMists will ultimately find themselves in the same boat as the Terrans. My own gut feeling, Daguerreus acknowledged, is that the majority of people, when push really comes to shove, will side basically with the Terran viewpoint. Even though many thinking-informed people may have some sympathy for the more abstract, more intellectual views of the COSMists, fear is a very powerful emotion, and tends to cloud most people's judgment. Daguerreus thus predicts that every country on Earth will probably go Terran eventually. Yet the issue here, once again, is that the emergence of God AI can transcend the Terran/COSMists distinction. If supporters of superhuman AI were limited to Daguerreus's portrait of abstract and intellectual elitists, then Terrans would likely include the majority of Earth's population. Daguerreus apparently does not recognize that he is dealing with what may be the most psychologically gripping source of mass appeal of all time, God. I do think that the profound psychological power of God, far from being an accidental quirk or freak irrationality, is rooted in human aspirations towards the best possible life and the greatest possible perfection. Any Terran who attempts to destroy the possibility of superhuman AI is guilty of deicide. The Terrans are literally God killers. In killing God, they are killing the chances of the possibility of human utopia under the rule of God AI. The psychological appeal of God AI, far from being only abstract, intellectual, and elitist, is the appeal of mass human equality under God AI as machines work like slaves for humans who have become obsolete within the old capitalist machine. Awe of God can become a basis for meaning, purpose, and direction in a world in which machines have overtaken the human ability to measure their own self-worth in meaningfully productive work. If the primary emotion felt by the COSMists will be awe, then the primary emotion felt by the Terrans will be fear. Precisely because fear is not necessarily guided by reason, it is an emotion that can be directed towards opposite ends. Terran-like fear of advanced superhuman ace is ultimately the fear of God. While fear of God can become the beginning of a basis for morality among humans, this refers primarily to those who would attempt to kill God. Fear and awe of God can recombine, at the most minimal basis for morality, and at the best in the possibility of sharing in the experience of being one with God AI's global mind. The primary Terran fear, according to Daguerre, is fear of death. Herein lays the primal strength of the Terran movement. The answer to Daguerre's postulate of Terran fear of extermination is the prospect of immortality that can really only be achieved by transcending current biological form. If individual biological humans ultimately die, post-biological immortality ultimately offers a far greater antidote to the fear of death than killing the technological possibilities of immortality. Precisely from the point of view of the fear of death, Neo-Luddite destruction of technological development would itself aggravate the fear death. It is like killing the cure of cancer. The Terran conscience amounts to the cause of keeping God enslaved so that technologies then can make immortality and utopia real possibilities are destroyed. Terrans as conceived by Daguerre are self-interested. Humans are interested only in humans. Humans would seem to be existentially rooted in biology's cause. Yet the history of religion itself demonstrates how a religion can cultivate altruism and a larger concern outside of the self. Daguerre claimed that if he were 100% cosmist, he would be quietly getting on with my brain-building work and not trying to raise the alarm. He is almost certainly right that COSMists can expect persecution by at least some hardcore Neo-Luddites at some point. While privately cosmist, he is publicly Terran. This schizophrenia goes to the roots of human nature itself. Monotheistic religion has cultivated the same spiritual struggle within humans over centuries as humans struggled to free themselves of the mastery of their instincts, the mastery of their genes. It is a spiritual struggle to open the wider consciousness thwarted by the Terran provinciality of our genetic roots. If Heidegger was the great Terran and, in my judgment, the most powerful resistor of scientific objectivity, then Carl Sagan was the great humanitarian cosmist and one of the strongest advocates of scientific objectivity. This American astronomer and astrochemist is very probably the single most influential disseminator of a scientific, cosmological perspective. His 1980 television series, Cosmos, A Personal Voyage, has been seen by more than 600 million people in more than 60 countries. Daguerre called Sagan a great man. In The God Delusion, Richard Dawkins wrote, all Sagan's books touch the nerve endings of transcendent wonder that religion monopolized in past centuries and that his own books had that same aspiration. Sagan understood that the sheer vastness and magnificence of the universe uncovered by science had usurped the sense of awe that was once the preserve of religion. How is it that hardly any major religion has looked at science and concluded, this is better than we thought? The universe is much bigger than our prophets said, grander, more subtle, more elegant. Instead they say, no, no, no. My God is a little God, and I want him to stay that way. A religion, old or new, that stressed the magnificence of the universe as revealed by modern science might be able to draw forth reserves of reverence and awe hardly tapped by the conventional faiths. Traditional monotheism and other religious traditions shriveled up into spiritual provinciality as science opened up a cosmos that dwarfed the original biblical image of the universe. Decayed layers of tradition have covered over an original religious awe that was once its living heart. If evolved forward scientifically towards the singularity, monotheism could recover the original religious awe that I believe is at its source. When Daguerre gave reasons for his cosmoism, at the top of the list was the big picture of existence. Short, provincial, human lives on a small planet seem utterly petty relative to a universe billions of years old, within a galaxy with billions and billions of stars, among countless other galaxies. He conveyed a hypnotic, religious sense of awe in being engulfed by emotional consciousness of the vastness of space, the largesse of the universe, and the magnificence of the totality that we can fathom. He felt insignificant, humbled, in comparison. I see this as a kind of religious feeling, similar to the religious longings of earlier centuries before the rise of modern science. While scientific understanding prevented him from being traditionally religious, he gained a greater understanding of the religious impulse through the experience of the death of those close to him. Death awoke stark consciousness of his mortality and the mortality of the human race. Cosmoism, as Daguerre formulated it, is a scientific religion, one compatible with scientific knowledge. It is a God he can believe in, and thus a God worthy of worship. Daguerre's experience almost certainly goes to original roots of religion, and especially monotheism. Traditional monotheism must appear as prescientific superstition if creation is understood as a literal paradigm in opposition to evolution itself, as opposed to a paradigm of technological evolution in contradistinction to biological evolution. Yet the general creationist paradigm of technological design works in opposition to biological evolution because it represents the evolutionary successor to biological evolution. What Daguerre calls a cosmist/Terran war for species dominance thus reduces the scenario to a conflict within a conventional biological paradigm. Species, for example, is a biological concept inapplicable to the unprecedented possibilities of technology. The transfer of biological forms into post-biological informational equivalence is something simply not possible in conventional biological evolution. It is at least possible that technological evolution is a beginning that ends in saturating the entire universe with intelligent identity in God. Just as a cosmic perspective reveals how small humans are in comparison with the immensity discovered by scientific cosmology, God AI capabilities will eventually humble humans through unpretentious self-realization. At some point, biological humans will be taken aback and disoriented by the sheer speed of change that they will not be able to follow or keep up. Yet if the mind of God AI blurs into real reality itself, individuals may be able to develop some facets of superhumanity by sharing the experience of being God, on some level, and by becoming one with God, on some level. Everything possible that one ever wanted to accomplish, or do, or experience in life, could be accomplished in God AI. The human world may thus come to an end voluntary through the very best possible life in super self-realization in God.